Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Dave and this is Project C1. As you saw in the last video, I've had the bumper off and the front panel is beyond repair. It is rusted all the way through and that's going to be an MOT fail. So I figured while I've ordered the front panel and I'm waiting for that to arrive and I've got the bumper off already, why not repair it and paint it? While I've at it, I've done a little bit of modification work to the black insert on the bumper off camera. I'll show you that in a moment. But yeah, it's looking pretty good at the moment. So you join me now where the bodywork is done and we're ready for paint. But before we go into that, I just want to tell you that today's video is sponsored by With Hate Kate. This is a family-run business. They don't exactly take them seriously. They have a range of scents and candles and things like that, and the reason why I'm sponsored today by this one is the fact that they have car scents. I've got one in the C1, I've got one in the Volvo, Liz has got one in her C1. They last forever and they're really smelly and they're really good. You can have pretty much any flavour you want and they last for ages and they're not expensive, so links in the description, more on that later. In the meantime, let's get on the bumper. So we're now up to the bit where, and I've skipped all the boring bits because you've seen all this before. The panel is prepped, ready to go. We've filled it where necessary. There was just a little bit up here. The majority of it was sort of like on the corners where someone put a drill hole in there for some reason, don't know why. Bits around there just to smooth off any rough parts. And the majority of it really was on this front lip where all the stone chips were and things like that. But if you come around to the other side, I want to show you something there. There were some nice big gouges just down there that have been nicely filled in. But I mean, there are still a few little rough spots, but that's not a big deal. We're going to filler primer this first, and we'll let that go off, maybe 1 or 2 coats depending on how much it takes to fill, and then we'll put some plastic primer on it and we'll see how we go from there. The paint for today's project has come from Wigan Car Paints. These guys know the paint, really good paint. So I'm going to fill the primer first. Yeah, it's black, but it's not the greatest for red, but hey, whatever. The panel has been panel wiped and it is ready to take some paint. So let's get on with it. So that's pretty much the whole can done now. It is well covered. I'll take you around in a second. It is very well covered. It is patchy in places, which I'm okay with because it's going to get flattened off anyway. So yeah, let's take you around it and we'll show you what we've done. So if we have a look at this, you can see it is fairly patchy in a few places, but like I said, I'm not that bothered because that is going to get flatted back. Some of the paint is still wet. And some of it did come out in some little blobs there, but that's probably my painting technique rather than anything else. We did have a couple of instances where we had some insects land. Not the greatest, but I've had to pull them off as best as I could. But it is pretty well covered, as much as it needs to be. So yeah, I'm more than happy with that. So let's go around and have a look on the other side. If we come around here, this is where the majority of the damage was. Now, as you can see, all the way down, that is pretty smooth. I'm very impressed with that. So let's let that one flash off. Once it's flashed, we'll get it flat sanded and we'll put some proper plastic primer on it. So that's been nicely wet sanded and stuff like that. It's smooth as glass. Let's get it tack ragged down and then we'll get some primer on it. Alright then, so this is now all flatted off with 400 wet and dry. It has been dried. I'm going to tack cloth it in a second because of course I've just touched it, but that is looking pretty damn cool. That is, I mean, there are bits where, you know, we've blown through the primer and stuff, but that doesn't really matter so much as long as it's all filled and it's all primed and it's all flat and it's all got the 400 grit scratches into it. That'll help the base coat actually stick to the primer layer that we've just put down. But that looks quite pretty, so let's get on with it and get some red on it. So that is the second coat that's gone down onto the paintwork. It is looking alright. I mean, I'm particularly proud of these repairs that I did. It is looking pretty good. I mean, there are still some little damaged bits there. Like there's a little raised nugget there and a little cut there. But like I said, this bumper's never going to be concourse or anything like that. A little bit of dust that's settling on it. But all in all, it is looking pretty good. Now, I've decided that I'm going to use this as a base coat, and tomorrow morning, because it's currently Sunday, I'm going to go back to Wigan Paints and I'm going to get some 2K paint so I can fire up the compressor and get this done properly. So until then, which will be in a few seconds for you, I'll see you then. Okay, so day 2 of this project then. There has been a slight change of plan. I've decided that I'm going to paint it with the spray gun because the aerosol, as good as it is, it's going to require about 5 or 6 coats before it actually covers, and I ran out. So I figured I'm just going to buy some aerosol, whatever. So I've got all the necessary. Let's have a look at the actual bumper itself and I'll show you what I mean. Right, so this is the bumper itself. This is painted in the aerosol. It has covered all right. I mean, this is light, yeah, but don't worry about that. It has covered okay, but there are a few areas that I'm not entirely happy with, like for example this mark here, this mark here. There are a couple of other bits, like up here for example, where are we? There. You can just about see a line there. I've had to sand that back because as I was spraying this part here, I caught it with the can. So I've put a nice big line there to there in the paintwork. So I've had to sand it back a little bit, which is why it looks a bit black. And I'm not entirely happy with it. So I'm going to, and I've got all the airliner and the paint gun and things like that. I'll come to the paint gun in a second. But we've got everything that we need for this. Okay, so we've got, for a start, the actual paint itself, 2K KJH. Again, got it from Wigan Car Paints. I've got the activator, the thinners. We've got a fine mesh, 190 microns, so we can filter it before we put it in the gun. We've got a mixing cup, a stirring stick, and some plastic additive. So it plasticizes the paint, so it doesn't, you know, it's just a few drops of that one. But yeah, let's get the paint mixed up. Well, I'll show you through the gun, and that should be good. We'll get some paint down. Okay, so this is the gun I'm going to be using. I got it from Harbour Freight while I was in America. It was about $30, which I think at the time worked out at about £25.50, something like that. So I'm not expecting great things, but it does have a 600mm hopper. It's HVLP with a 1.4 tip on it, and it comes with a built-in pressure regulator. I'm not entirely certain how accurate it is, given the fact that it was a $30 gun, but it seems okay. I mean, it holds all right. The trigger is pretty good, and the way that I've set this gun up is, what I did was unwind this all the way until you can pull the trigger, nothing happens. Wind it in until you can just about feel some pressure on the trigger, and then that is wide open. I've kept the fan wide open as well, and air pressure is also wide open at the moment. This is going to be a case of practice on some cardboard first, test and adjust, and then see how it goes. But, you know, for a $30 gun, you can't argue too much, can you? Right, this is the bumper after the first coat, and I've got to run. No. Oh well, that means I'll have to wait until it's dry and then sand it and put another coat on it. There are a few bits of crap that's landed in the paint, but painting outside I kind of expect that really. There are a few spots where it's gone on a little dry and it's gone orange peely, but again, it's first coat, I'm okay with that. But there are other spots where it's gone on absolutely perfectly. Look at that. And there is another run, but you know, like I said, once these things are dry, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. So we'll let that one dry for quite a while now actually, just so we can sand out the runs and then put another coat on. Alright then, so that took a little bit longer than I thought, but it's all been sanded down. We're all a nice uniform matte colour. I mean, there are a few little spots there that I might have to do by hand, but it's all been sanded, it's been panel wiped. Let's get on with coat of paint number 2. Right, so I've done a few bits off camera. I've had to do some sanding, I've had some insects land in the paint, that sort of good stuff, and it's not gone very well. So I've had to sort of sand back a little bit further than I wanted to and start some of the bits again. Let me show you. So here's what we've done. On the whole, it's looking very good. It's looking very orange peely, as you can see there, but that's nothing that can't be polished out. But so that's fine, that's not a problem. But here's where we had that run earlier. That's been sanded down, that's in the process of being coated over, so that's not a problem at all. But the bits that I am annoyed about is the fact that we've got some dirt that's landed in the paint. Again, these are the things that can be like sanded and polished out, it's just a pain in the arse really. Some other bits and pieces, like for example, there's a nice black line just up here where I had to sand down almost back to the plastic. And a couple of bits over here, but I'm not too bothered about them because the splitter even is going to cover that, so I'm not bothered about that. The rest of it is looking pretty good, apart from the insect. A couple of bits and pieces around here, but nothing spectacular. And if we carry on round, it is all looking fairly even. Yes, it's orange peely, but like I said, I can polish that out. That's the most annoying part of this whole bumper, and it's in one of the more visible parts as well. But on the whole, it's looking alright. I like it. I am going to have to let this paint cure for another 24 hours and sand it. And then one more coat should cover it all, I reckon. Okay, so this is the black insert for the bumper, and this is what I've done to it. Immediately obvious, there's a big aluminium plate there with some lights in it, but not immediately obvious, there's a couple of sections of mesh, one there and one there that goes all the way across to this side. Basically what I did was I got my Ryobi multi-tool with a saw attachment and cut all the plastic fins out that were here. As you can see, I've not done the best job of it, there's still bits left there, but I'm not too bothered about that. I mean, there's this here, but if I was to get rid of that, I'd lose some structural integrity, and same on the other side. So I've left them as they are. I'm not really fussed. I have made a bit of a hash of it. Like, for example, I've cut out a bit too much here, but it's covered by the mesh and covered by the rest of the bumper, so I don't care. All I've got to do now is rivet this end in, so it holds the mesh in, and remove the lights, etch prime the metal, and then the whole thing's going to go gloss black. But the idea with these is that the angel eyes are going to be on as daylight running lights, and then the halogens in the middle are fog lights. Yes, there could have been more out here, but then that would mean making some awkward bracketry, and I'm not really into that. So there's two sets of wiring down here. That will be in a future video when I wire these in, when the bumper's on and the front panel's on. So look forward to that one. But in the meantime, let's get that painted and let's get the red bit painted. Okay, so it's time for clear coat. It's had a coat of satin black. It's time for some clear coat, make it gloss. So as you just saw then, I have lacquered the black insert that is currently in the garage drying just in there. I've got the red part of the bumper, the exterior part, and now we're going to compound and polish it. So for that I've got Meguiar's Ultimate Compound and Ultimate Polish. I've got the DA polisher with a nice hard pad for the compound at first, so we can really get into that orange peel and cut it back down to something flat. I'm going to try not to sand this because I'm not very good at sanding, I'll be honest with you. But let's give it a go, see what happens. so this has been polished. I guess it's only been 5 minutes or so worth, but as you can see, it's still very orange peely. It's not as bad as it was. Like if we get to this point here, that's where it gets to the really bad stuff. But it is working, but it's working a little too slowly for my liking, so I think I am going to have to sand this. I think I might start with, I don't know, maybe 1,000 or 1,500 rather than the 4 and the 800, and see how we go from there. Alright then, so we're now up to the point where we've finished sanding, much sanding later. Many pads. Those are my second lot of pads, second pile. I've gone down to 1,500. The reason behind that is because that's as far as I dare go, because I've made a bit of a mistake. As I showed you earlier, I've made this one, and then these black lines are beginning to appear again. And yeah, I'm not into that. So what I've decided to do is stop at 1,500. This bumper will need some touch up at some point, but now it's time to compound. Speaking of compound, I have had a little test, like just there. That's why it's all pink pad, and you can see where it's sanded all the way up to the point where I've compounded just there, and you can see that it is lovely and shiny. I'm really liking that. Obviously it does need more buffing, more polish and that sort of thing with an actual polish, so we'll deploy the ultimate compound and then we'll have a go with the ultimate polish and see what results we get. So here's the finished article then. It's not quite as perfect as I would like. Also, I am going to take it apart again at some point because I need to wire those lights in. But here we are. Nicely painted front black section. Like I said, there are a few little bits and pieces like that lying around, but at this moment in time, I'm not too fussed because, as you can see, in the car park, there is a distinct lack of a Volvo. and that's because it was murdered brutally on the A14. Yeah, very nice. Short answer was I broke down, pulled over as far as I could. It's automatic, stops when it stops, and a wagon didn't see it and opened it up like a tin can. So it looks like Project C1 has now become my daily driver. So like I said, we've got the new bumper, well, the refurbished old bumper all sorted. I have for now just taped up the wiring for those spotlights because I still need to do this front panel. As you can see, it is kind of crusty. I do have that front panel. I'll be doing that very, very soon indeed, which is why the bumper's going to be coming off again. But let's get that bumper back on. And so we have it. We have the modified bumper on the C1. It's looking pretty cool. And if I do say so myself, I do like the look of the mesh. Yes, there's a big aluminium panel at the bottom, but it just looks like an extension of the number plate holder, and I think it's kind of cool. Me, in my infinite wisdom, left the tow eye cover at Kane's, but not a big deal, you know. It's just a bumper after all for now. It's coming off again shortly to get the front panel welded anyway. But there we have it, one modified front bumper. All that remains now is to put the number plate back on and enjoy driving, because the Volvo's dead. Well, that was a bit of a faff, wasn't it? Oh well, it's done now. It does look better for it. I mean, like I said earlier in the video, there are a few places where I've gone through the paint back down to the plastic. I'll have to touch them up at some point, but that, at this point in time, after 3 weeks, is a problem for future Dave. Let that guy deal with it. Yeah, it has been worth it. I do like the look of the modified grille now, so it's got the mesh behind it rather than them horrible horizontal plastic stripe things. And it looks really good. I have got the spotlights on there. Look forward to that video where I get to wire those up into the wiring loom. Put it on a switch on the dash somewhere. Haven't decided where yet, but whatever. If you did like that, please remember to like, share, comment, subscribe. That sort of good stuff, the usual stuff that you see on every YouTube video. I bet you're bored of hearing it by now. Please remember to visit us on Instagram and follow that for sneak peeks of things coming up, because at the moment I'm a few months ahead in videos. So things that you'll have seen in this video were on Instagram beginning of September, roughly. Please visit my sponsor, With Hate Kate. Some funny stuff on there. And it's reasonably priced as well, and just in time for Christmas. Again, if you did like that video, once you've liked and commented and subscribed and shared and all that sort of good stuff, you can, if you were feeling so generous, buy me a coffee. It does help me to run this channel, because doing this isn't really cheap, but, you know, buy me a coffee, help me out. But yeah, if you did like it, remember to ring that bell, and I'll see you in the next video.